My wife slept with my best friend, tried to pass off his child as mine, and in the end, the truth blew everything apart. Today, she gave birth, and with that, my marriage all but came crashing down. At this point, I'm about 99% sure it's over. All that's left is the final confirmation, which should come soon. The hospital's rushing the DNA results because of special circumstances, though I already know what they're gonna say. Right now, I'm sitting at a bar just a 10-minute drive from the hospital. My phone keeps buzzing nonstop on the table in front of me. Even though I know I will not hear from the doctor for a few more hours, I keep glancing at the screen like I expect some miracle text. My wife keeps calling. So do the kids. Her parents too. I have not picked up. I know they all want answers. Truth is, so do I. The baby? She's beautiful. Got these soft blonde curls like her mama. Weighed 7 pounds and 12 ounces. 19 inches long. A picture-perfect, full-term baby. But here's the thing, my wife insists the baby came 6 weeks early. Now, I'm not a doctor or anything, but I've got enough sense to know that a premature baby doesn't come out that well-developed and healthy. Something about the story ain't right. And deep down, I already know what the real deal is. That child? She's not mine. She belongs to Alan, my best friend since childhood, who passed away not too long ago. My worst fear, the one I tried to bury, just stood up and slapped me in the face. The waitress drops off my 5th shot of whiskey. At this pace, I'll end up spending over $1,000 on a bottle that usually goes for a little over 100. But right now, I honestly could not care less. I am just trying to stay numb. Back in the day, we were known as the Three Amigos. Me, Alan, and Kamila. Our families all moved onto the same block when we were about 5 years old, all within a 2-year stretch. Alan and I moved in during the same summer, and Camila's family came the following spring. From the start, Alan and I were tight. Then Kamila came along and it just clicked. She fit right in like she was always meant to be part of the group. Kamila was a tough little tomboy back then. She could outrun me, outplay Alan, and there wasn't a game we played that she did not jump into: stickball, kickball, you name it. While other girls were playing with dolls or dressing up, Kamila was out in the dirt with us, scrapping and laughing like one of the guys. But time does its thing. By the time we hit our teenage years, everything started changing. Especially Kamila. She went from this lanky blonde with wild pigtails to a young woman with curves, smooth hair, and that glow guys couldn't help but notice. Alan and I both saw the change, but we never said a word. I think we were both scared she might knock our teeth out if we did. A year later, Alan started disappearing now and then. Said he had stuff to do. I didn't ask too many questions. I just liked the extra time with Kamila. Those moments started to feel different. Like maybe there was something more between us than just friendship. I remember one Sunday afternoon, Alan was out with his folks, Kamila and I were sitting on the porch swing. Not sure what we were talking about, but then she leaned over and kissed me. My very first kiss. I was stunned. Wow, was all I could manage to say. She smiled, kind of shy, and I took her hand. We sat there swinging gently, not saying much, just feeling something new. The next day Alan was back, and Kamila acted like nothing happened. At one point I reached for her hand and she pulled away, calm and casual. I was confused, didn't know what to think. When the Christmas dance rolled around during our freshman year, I figured it was time to step up. One day on the walk home from school, with Kamila between us, I nervously asked, "Hey, Kamila, if you're not already going with someone, would you want to go to the dance with me next month?" She stopped dead in her tracks. We all did. I saw Alan smirking and that gave me a bad feeling. I'm already going with Alan, she said. He asked me yesterday. Alan's grin said everything. Sorry, Louis, he chuckled. You were too slow. Man, that hurt. I felt like I got hit in the gut. Not only did I have no idea Alan liked her, but I'd broken one of the biggest unwritten rules: you do not go after your buddy's girl, even if things aren't official. Hey Gar, I wasn't trying to step on your toes, I said. Didn't know. Alan just nodded. No hard feelings, Louis. But it did hurt. The walk home was quiet. Kamila kept chatting with Alan while I stayed silent, just tagging along like a third wheel. I ended up skipping the dance altogether. Couldn't bring myself to go solo or ask someone else. That night, I felt like I had lost both of my best friends. My dad noticed I was feeling down. He came into my room, settled into the chair by my desk, and said, "Girls, huh? Can't live with them. Can't shoot them." That actually made me laugh a little. Thanks, Dad, I said. I needed that. After that, things weren't the same. The Three Amigos? That turned into Alan and Kamila and me tagging along. They stayed a couple all through high school, and I eventually started seeing other girls. After graduation, we all went separate ways. Alan ended up at the University of California, Los Rochelles. Kamila went to Ohio State. I wound up there too, but I kept my distance. Out of respect for Alan, I didn't talk to Kamila much our first year. She seemed confused by that, but I didn't want anyone getting the wrong idea. One day, Kamila's mom, Rhonda, pulled me aside. She and her husband, Mark Wilson, were like second parents to me. She asked, "Louis, are you upset with Kamila?" I told her no, but in truth, I was just trying to do the right thing. She misses the old days, Louis, Mrs. Wilson told me one afternoon, her voice soft and nostalgic. I looked at her and said gently, "We can't rewind the clock, Mrs. Wilson. We're grown now. And if she's not with me, then honestly, Alan's probably the next best man for her." Things didn't really change during our sophomore year in college. But near the end of junior year, out of the blue, Kamila asked me to be her date for her sorority formal. I was caught off guard, surprised, even a little cautious. "Wait a second, Kamila, aren't you still dating Alan?" I asked, not wanting to step on any toes. She shook her head. "No. We broke up after summer. He's staying out in California for law school and didn't want to hold me back." "Law school? Alan?" That definitely caught me by surprise. He never talked much about that. That first date felt strange, like we were trying to pick up a book we hadn't read in years. But something clicked because she asked me out again. By the fourth date, things got physical. I could tell she wasn't new to intimacy, but to be fair, neither was I. So I didn't make it a big deal. We ended up dating for 2 solid years. Even though a small part of me still had doubts, I asked her to marry me. Alan even stood by me as my best man. I'll admit it was awkward having the guy who used to be with my fiancée standing beside me while I said my vows. But I pushed that thought aside. After the wedding, Alan went back to California and I figured that chapter of our lives was closed. For the next years, I hardly thought about him. 2 years after we got married, our daughter Amy was born. Then came our son, Logan, 2 years after that. Life was moving right along. One day, my mom told us she'd heard from Mrs. Prescott, Alan's mother. Word was Alan was coming back home for a visit. Turns out he had cancer. It wasn't good and he wanted to see his family while he still had the strength. My mom suggested throwing a little get-together so Alan could see some familiar faces. His mother was all for it. Even though he was starting treatments, Alan didn't look too bad when he arrived. But you could see the sadness in him, like the weight of the world was sitting on his shoulders. Divorced twice, no kids. He came alone. That night, the 3 of us, Kamila, Alan, and I sat around for hours just catching up. Most of the conversation was about him and the time he had left. Near the end of the evening, Kamila dropped a bombshell, an idea that, looking back, put a crack in our marriage. "What if we came out to California and took care of you until you need full hospice care?" she asked. Both Alan and I stared at her like she'd grown another head. We hadn't talked about anything like that before, and the offer blindsided me. "Trace, are you serious?" I said. She looked at me, then turned back to Alan. "You're our oldest friend. Who else would we trust to do this right?" Alan shook his head slowly. "Doctors say I've still got a few months before things get that bad. You two have your own lives, kids in college, work. I can't ask that of you." Kamila didn't even flinch. "My job at the insurance company offers family leave. Louis can use vacation days. We'll make it work." I was skeptical. "That'd only get us a couple months," I told her. "Not nearly enough time." "Then we rotate," she offered. "We'll split shifts and stretch it out. I can handle it once you're back at work." I didn't like the whole idea. Not one bit. Kamila was practically volunteering to live apart from me for months, all to take care of a man she once loved. But she'd put it out there in front of Alan. If I pushed back, I'd come off like the bad guy. "Trace, that's a big ask," I started, trying to reason with her. She shot me a look, the kind that said, "This discussion is over." "That's what we're doing," she said flatly. I clamped my mouth shut and just nodded. Later that night, the second we walked through the front door, my frustration boiled over. "Are you serious, Kamila? You're just gonna take off for months to take care of your ex-boyfriend? You're unbelievable," she snapped. "Is this really about him sleeping with me before you ever did?" I ended up crashing in Logan's old bedroom that night. It took us 3 full days to come to a so-called agreement, which really just meant Kamila got what she wanted. We went back to California, just like she promised Alan. He was grateful, kept thanking both of us over and over. After the first month, I felt guilty for how I'd reacted. I mean, the guy was dying. But I was also wiped out, working full-time, managing the house, and doing everything I could to help Kamila help Alan. Some days he was better, some days he wasn't. The second month rolled around and I started feeling a weird shift between Kamila and me. Nothing major at first, just little things. She seemed more tired. I figured that made sense, given the stress. But the way she and Alan interacted, it felt different. Like they had this unspoken language. I noticed subtle looks, inside jokes, stuff that didn't sit right. By the third month, I started to feel like a guest in their world. Kamila became distant. When we were alone, especially when we tried to be intimate, she just wasn't there with me, not mentally, not emotionally. I chalked it up to burnout. Grief. Fatigue. By month 4, I was out of time, no more vacation days left. Alan still had some time, so Kamila stayed on while I flew back home alone. Our daughter Amy stepped up and offered to help out. Alan was her godfather, and she took it seriously. She flew in to support Kamila, doing what she could over the course of a few weeks. Eventually, Alan declined fast. Hospice care was the only option left, and a few weeks later, he passed. I flew back for the funeral. Kamila was heartbroken, as were Alan's parents. They thanked me for everything we did, but most of the praise really went to Kamila, and rightfully so. She was by his side the whole way. When she came back home, I gave her space. I figured she needed time to process everything. But then, almost overnight, she flipped a switch. We were suddenly back in sync, being intimate every single day for 3 straight weeks. It felt like we'd rediscovered something we lost years ago. Then one morning, she stepped out of the bathroom holding a pregnancy test. Positive. I just stared at her. I should have been suspicious, or at least surprised she wasn't surprised. But honestly, I was still too shocked to process it all. We were both 45. Our children have already grown up. We were almost empty nesters. And now this? Didn't you say you were still on birth control? I asked. I forgot to bring them when we went to California, she said. And when we got home, I never started back. But we're against abortion. We'll make it work like we always have. I nodded, still trying to get my head around everything. Somehow, I found myself grinning. We were going to have another baby. That whole week, I was walking on clouds. And Kamila? She was insatiable. We were together every night, sometimes twice. It was almost too much to keep up with, but I wasn't complaining. When Amy came home for a long weekend, she and Kamila headed out for a big shopping trip, maternity clothes, baby stuff, the works. We'd given away all our old baby gear years ago, so it felt like starting from scratch. They came back laughing, carrying half the store with them, and I ended up hauling the bags into the house like their personal delivery man. That evening, we had a quick, cozy dinner together. Kamila joked about how much baby products had changed in recent years, from high-tech strollers to maternity clothes that looked more like they belonged in a fashion magazine. She laughed, but mentioned feeling a little weird wearing stuff clearly designed for women in their 20s. Well, Mom, Amy teased, grinning, not your fault you're a MILF, and somebody couldn't resist. They both chuckled, but I noticed something strange. Kamila gave Amy a quick, tight frown like she wasn't thrilled with the comment. And the way Amy said somebody instead of dad hit me in the gut. It wasn't just a silly joke, it felt like there was something behind it. I didn't say anything. I just kept my ears open after that. All weekend, I caught a few more comments from Amy that seemed to carry hidden meaning, little jabs or offhand remarks that didn't sit right. I couldn't tell if she was aiming them at me or at her mother, or both. When Kamila stepped out of the room, I tried to poke around a bit. I asked Amy how she felt about becoming a big sister again. She paused. For a good half-minute, she just looked at the floor. Then she forced a giggle and coughed like she was trying to cover it. I mean, it's kinda cool, I guess, she said awkwardly. Mom's still smoking, hot, and you're, like, the man. She bolted out of the room before I could ask anything else. I reached into my coat pocket for a couple of cigarettes. I'd started smoking again, not proud of it, but I needed something to keep me grounded. Kamila kept getting bigger, and I honestly thought she looked more beautiful every week. Still, something didn't feel right deep down. I couldn't put my finger on it, or maybe I didn't want to. A few months later, I was at work when I got a call from Kamila. She'd gone back to work for a few months but took time off again when things got more difficult physically. Hey, Daddy, she said in this playful, sultry voice. Mind giving me a lift to the hospital? I blinked. Why? Is everything okay? Well, she purred, my water just broke and I'm not really in the mood for a stroll. Oh hell, I muttered, grabbing my keys and telling my boss I had to run. The hospital was 15 minutes away, but I made it in 12. On the drive over, I kept thinking, if she was only 6, maybe 6.5 months along, why was she so calm? A baby that early? That's scary stuff. You don't joke around when things can go wrong in an instant. When I got home, Kamila looked oddly calm. Meanwhile, I was sweating bullets, more nervous than I'd been with either of our first 2 kids. 10 hours later, I became a father again, or so I thought. Another little girl. She was perfect. Too perfect. As the nurse cleaned her up and brought her toward me, something inside me screamed. I flinched, stepping back before I could even stop myself. The nurse looked confused. This baby's full term, right? I asked quietly, almost afraid to hear the answer. The doctor glanced over at me, then at Kamila, who was still being tended to. They exchanged a look. Kamila gave the slightest shake of her head. I'm sorry, Mr. Marsley, the doctor said. I can't discuss the child's condition with you. You're not listed for medical disclosure under privacy policy. I stared at him. You're telling me I'm not on the authorized list? It's hospital regulation privacy compliance. And that's when I snapped. To hell with privacy compliance. I shouted, making half the room jump. If that's my daughter, I've got every right to know her status. And if she's not mine, and you know she's not, then you sure as hell can't list me on her birth certificate. Not without my consent. And let me tell you right now, you do not have it. Get me a damn DNA test. Now. The room went dead silent. I yanked off the gown and gloves and stormed out. On my way out of the hospital, I saw our parents sitting together, just catching a glimpse of me blowing past. I didn't say a word. I just kept walking. I ended up back at that same bar I always seemed to find myself at when things went wrong. Took down shots 6 and 7, scarfed a greasy burger, and tried to forget everything. By then, everyone in my life had called or messaged except the one person I needed to hear from, the doctor. You'd think something that big would keep you up all night. But after that much whiskey and that much emotional wreckage, I passed out cold. When I woke up, my voicemail was slammed full. So was my inbox. Apparently, things had gone smoothly after I left, and I was supposed to bring Kamila and the baby home that day. I showered quick and headed back to the hospital. My insides were still in knots. When I got to Kamila's room, she was breastfeeding the baby. I didn't say anything, just slumped down in the chair next to her, silent. The baby nodded off, and Kamila gently unlatched and laid her in the bassinet. Then she turned to me with eyes full of tears. I don't even know where to start, Louis, she whispered. I didn't plan any of this. I swear. I went there to be a friend to help. But one day he was crying and things happened. It just happened, Kamila whispered, her eyes locked on the baby. We ended up back in bed like it was years ago. Once it started, it was hard to stop. Especially when you came to visit. We'd pretend nothing happened, but when you left, we'd slip right back into it. It felt wrong, Louis. I knew it. But I didn't stop. Maybe I didn't want to. She paused for a moment, then added quietly, we were together off and on for about 4 months. The last 2, it was constant. You weren't around and I. She couldn't even finish the sentence. Then she said something that made my blood freeze. And honestly, we were together before I stopped using birth control, so technically the baby could have been yours. I just sat there, stunned, staring at her. But she's not, Kamila said, still watching the baby in the bassinet. Not once did she look up at me. A knot formed in my stomach and I could barely get the words out. Wait, you were sleeping with Alan when Amy was there visiting? She turned red. Deep red. I clenched my jaw, trying to keep my voice down. So Amy knew? She knew and she didn't tell me. Kamila nodded slowly, shame written all over her face. I trusted her, I said, my voice cracking. I trusted my own daughter not to keep secrets like that. She understood what we were doing, Kamila said quietly. She knew it wasn't easy. I asked her to keep it between us. That's on me, Louis. Logan doesn't know. No one else does. Just the 3 of us. I want to keep it that way. We need to focus on what's best for Louis Jr. now. My mouth dropped open. Louis Jr.? I said in disbelief. That's the name you picked? It's your name too, she said gently. She might not be your biological daughter, but she's yours now. We need to show up for her just like we did for Amy and Logan. Don't give me that, I snapped. Don't try to wrap this up in some feel-good message about family. Alan wasn't my best friend if he was sleeping with my wife. Friends don't do that. He was dying, Louis. And we had history. But not while you were married to me, right? I cut in. Or is there more I don't know? Her face darkened. No. Absolutely not. And naming her after me doesn't make any of this okay, I said. You really think that fixes things? She's got your last name, Kamila snapped. Chester. Just like me. Then why is Alan listed as the father on the birth certificate? I asked. That's for legal reasons, she said, her voice more defensive now. Only you and I need to know. If you don't want to be on the paperwork, you won't be. It's handled. I let out a bitter laugh. Handled. Kamila leaned forward. Why are you so angry? He was our friend. He was dying. I gave him love and comfort in his last days. What's so wrong with that? You were married. I shouted. We made vows. In front of God. Our families. You broke that trust, Kamila. You didn't even think how this would affect me, your husband. Yes, I get it, it's my body, my choice, I continued. But marriage comes with choices too. You didn't just slip up. You chose this. Over and over again. And if you hadn't gotten pregnant, I bet I'd still be in the dark. Camila's lips trembled. You're twisting this into something ugly. I stood. I'm calling it what it is. She tried to reach for me, but I pulled back. Later that week, Amy and Logan both came home from college to meet their new sister. I couldn't even look at Amy when she walked in. My heart was too heavy. That night, she and I made dinner together while Kamila and Logan doted over the baby in the living room. It was quiet in the kitchen, too quiet. As we were washing dishes, I finally said it. You knew. You knew your mom was cheating and didn't say a damn word. Amy turned pale, tears filling her eyes. She looked down at the sink, then finally met my eyes. I thought what you and Mom were doing for Uncle Alan was amazing, she said softly. When I found out what she was doing, I was shocked. But then I saw it as something deeper, heartbreaking, sure, but also brave and loving. Like something out of a Shakespeare tragedy. I didn't even know what to say. You thought it was noble? I asked. What about what it did to your father? Did you even think about me? She started crying. I didn't know what to do. The kids left Sunday afternoon. The house fell quiet. Too quiet. Just me, Kamila, and the baby. Over the next few days, Kamila tried again and again to get me involved, to hold the baby, to feed her, to be a dad. I refused every time. I couldn't bring myself to pretend. Not yet. Maybe not ever. One day, after I turned down her request again, she finally snapped. You're acting like a damn child, she yelled. Grow up and take some responsibility. It caught me off guard. Kamila hardly ever yelled, and certainly not at me. But I wasn't moved. I wasn't ready to forgive. I wasn't ready to forget. I didn't say a word. Just looked at her cold, blank, and walked out of the room. After that, work became my escape. I buried myself in my job, clocking in every hour I could just to stay away from the house. Being there felt like punishment. And when I was home, I mostly kept to myself. I had a lot on my mind, too much to sort through. I knew it wasn't the baby's fault. She didn't ask to be brought into this mess. But every time I looked at her, all I could see was Alan. All I could think about was the betrayal. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't pretend she was mine. Because she wasn't. Eventually, I came to the only conclusion that made any sense. I had to leave. I couldn't keep living with the woman who broke every promise we made. I couldn't look at Kamila without seeing everything she destroyed. And every time I saw that little girl, it reopened the wound. One evening, I came home and found Kamila sitting at the kitchen table. Her eyes were red, tears running down her cheeks. A mug of coffee sat in front of her, next to a thick envelope probably filled with paperwork or legal documents. I stepped inside quietly. Guess I'll order a pizza, I said, trying to sound neutral. Pepperoni and breadsticks, okay? She snapped her head toward me, voice sharp and bitter. That's all you care about? Dinner? Really? Do you even love me anymore? I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat down across from her. I don't love you like I did a month ago, I said flat. You wrecked everything. You slept with our best friend and tried to cover it up. If I were you, I'd start looking for a lawyer. And maybe give Alan's parents a call, let them know they've got a granddaughter now. I'm sure they'll be thrilled. I don't want a divorce, Louis. I still love you. Please, just slow down. Think about this, she begged. Will you really be happier without me? I looked at her, tired and worn out. That's all I have been doing, Kamila. This isn't about being alone. This is about what you did to us. You broke our vows. You crushed my trust. But if you love me, can't you forgive me? She pleaded. We can get through this. We belong together. I thought we did, I said, shaking my head. But this isn't something you fix with an apology. 24 years gone. My first real move was calling Logan. I told him the truth, that Kamila had cheated, that the baby wasn't mine, and that I'd filed for divorce. He didn't say much at first. Then he cursed under his breath. Wow, Dad. I don't even know what to say. What was Mom thinking? I could tell he was hurt and mad. I reassured him the best I could. She still loves you, son. That hasn't changed. None of this is your fault. What about the baby? He asked. She's not my responsibility, not emotionally, not financially, I said. But I know you'll help your little sister. He corrected me. Half-sister, Dad. Half-sister. I hadn't told my parents yet. I waited until after the divorce papers had been served. Dad was furious at both of us. He tore into Kamila for cheating, but he didn't let me off easy either. You knew there was history between them, he snapped. How could you let her go stay with him alone? Even if you trusted her, Louis, you should have known better. Never trust another man around your woman. Period. I didn't argue. He wasn't wrong. I should have fought harder to keep distance between them. That part? That was on me. Mom, on the other hand, saw it differently. You shouldn't just throw away your marriage, she said gently. People make mistakes. A mistake is a one-time thing, Mom. Kamila didn't slip up once. She had an affair for 4 damn months. And without protection, no less. She stayed quiet for a second, then looked at me and said, "You still love her." "I know you do. And that baby? Like it or not, she's your responsibility too. I still consider her my granddaughter." She used my full name when she said it, Robert, which told me exactly whose side she was on. Dad gave me a look that said I'm in trouble later. I didn't reach out to Amy. I figured Kamila would have called her first, and I was right. Later that day, Amy called me, angry and emotional. "Dad, Uncle Alan's gone. What's done is done. You can't change it now. Please, you and Mom still love each other. There's a baby involved now. Don't walk away. Step up." It hit me hard hearing that from her. But deep down, I didn't feel like her opinion carried much weight anymore. She'd known. She'd kept it from me. "You lost the right to give me advice when you decided to stay quiet," I said and hung up. A few days later, I heard Alan's parents had found out about the baby. They were shocked, but overjoyed. They had no idea Kamila had planned to keep the child a secret. Still, they said they understood. They even called me, asking if I'd reconsider that I was the best man to help raise their granddaughter, that I'd known Alan all my life. I was honest with them. "I appreciate it, but I'm not that guy. I can't do this. I'm too angry at both of them." I could feel the disappointment through the phone, but I couldn't bring myself to feel bad. I was just being real. Then the calls started coming from my in-laws. Kamila's folks pleaded with me not to give up on her. They admitted what she did was horrible, a huge mistake, but they begged me to try again. I thanked them for caring, but told them I couldn't promise anything. Kamila didn't go down without a fight. Her lawyer pushed for counseling, 12 joint therapy sessions. I agreed to show up. But deep down, I didn't know if there was anything left to fix. Kamila didn't want the divorce. She fought it tooth and nail. Her lawyer even arranged for us to attend 12 joint counseling sessions, hoping we could somehow patch things up. I agreed to go, not because I thought it would work, but because I didn't want to look like I didn't try. The first session was with a therapist named Dr. Jocelyn McAdams. She seemed polished and professional, probably 10 years older than both Kamila and me. She wore a sharp gray blazer and a pencil skirt, looking every bit the part of someone who had her life together. Kamila was already seated when I walked in, sitting quietly to my right. Dr. McAdams asked her to speak first. As Kamila started talking, I drifted. I figured I'd get my turn next. But that's not how it went. "Mr. Chester," Dr. McAdams said, "it seems like the future of your marriage rests in your hands. If you can set aside your pride and meet Kamila halfway, you can preserve this family." I blinked. That was her professional opinion? I felt like I'd wandered into an alternate reality where I was the bad guy for being betrayed. "Hold on a second, Doc." She interrupted me. "Please address me as Dr. McAdams. I don't want to be seen as anyone's friend or ally." "Well, Dr. McAdams," I said, forcing calm into my voice, "you haven't even heard my side yet, and it sure seems like you've already taken hers." I stood, turned, and walked right out of her office. On the way home, I called my lawyer and told him I wanted a different therapist, someone neutral this time. The next counselor, Dr. Lauren Event, was at least willing to let both of us speak. After hearing Kamila's side, she turned to me. "You've said you still care for your wife, Mr. Chester. She clearly loves you. And now there's a baby involved. What would it take for you to forgive and move forward?" I looked her in the eye. "Let me be clear. We were never really a family to begin with. And that child, that's not my daughter. I won't raise another man's baby." "So it's about your pride then?" she asked with a smug smile. I let out a humorless laugh. "It always comes back to me, doesn't it? Let me ask you something. I wasn't the one who had an affair. I wasn't the one who got pregnant by someone else. Maybe ask her why she did it. Maybe ask her what she plans to do about the damage she caused." I glanced at Kamila. She frowned and looked away. The therapist kept a poker face, but she wasn't expecting that. "Mr. Chester," she continued, "if you divorced your wife and later married a woman with children, wouldn't you be raising someone else's kids then?" "Maybe, Doc," I said. "But in this case, the baby was conceived while we were married. That's a different story entirely." She nodded. "Fair. But Alan passed before the baby was born. Are we splitting hairs at this point? Is that worth throwing everything away over? Splitting hairs?" I shook my head. "Petty is cheating for months and hiding it until you get caught. Petty is naming the baby after me like that would somehow soften the blow." She never came clean until I backed her into a corner. I could see the counselor wanted to respond, but I was on a roll. "Look, I still love her, I'll admit that. But you don't do this to someone you love. You don't cheat. You don't get pregnant. And you don't lie about it. Love doesn't look like that. And now she's telling everyone it was all out of compassion? That it was noble because Alan was dying? If it was so noble, why didn't she tell me, her husband? Because she knew I'd say no. And once you make a vow, you don't get to offer your body to someone else, not without destroying what we had. I leaned back, exhausted. Dr. Event looked at me for a long moment. Is there enough love left in you to try again, to be a husband, to be a father figure? Oh, I see, I said bitterly. Now we're playing the real man card. You think stepping up and pretending none of this happened makes me stronger? Like it redeems something? I shook my head slowly. My wife and our best friend betrayed me. If Alan were still alive, I'd knock his damn teeth in. And as for Kamila, that love is dying fast. As for the baby, it's sad, but I can't carry someone else's mistake. That next session, I barely spoke. Just the usual hello and goodbye. Kamila cried through most of it, pleading with me to change my mind. I can see you're not going to reconsider, Dr. Event said quietly at the end. I'll notify the court. Thanks, Doc, I muttered. 6 months later, just before Christmas, the divorce was finalized. Our state has no-fault divorce laws, so everything got split down the middle. Kamila bought out my share of the house. It made sense, she had a baby to raise. Alan had left her some money in his will, and I agreed to pay alimony since I made more. It was fair. Logan stood by me even though I knew he was torn. He wanted to spend Christmas with the whole family, his mom, sister, and baby half-sister. I told him I understood and planned to celebrate New Year's with him instead. 2 days before Christmas, I stopped by the old house to drop off gifts. I brought something for everyone, including Kamila and even the baby. It wasn't much, but I didn't want to look bitter in front of my kids. Kamila looked stunned when she opened the door and saw me standing there, holding Louis Jr. in my arms. She hesitated, then stepped aside and let me in. You didn't have to do all this, she said softly, glancing at the wrapped presents in my hands. I gave a little shrug. Yeah, maybe. But I guess I just didn't want to ruin the holiday for anyone. When I stepped into the living room, the Christmas decorations hit me like a wave. Same ones we'd had for years, the lights, the ornaments, even the scent of cinnamon from the old potpourri mix. Only this time I hadn't put any of it up. Kamila had done it all herself. I tried to keep my expression neutral, but the emotion must have slipped through. She noticed. Want some eggnog, Louis? She asked, standing beside the tree. I'll put the gifts under in a second. Can you hold the baby for a bit? Everything in me wanted to say no. But my voice caught in my throat, and before I could come up with an excuse, I nodded. I took the baby, Alan's baby, and held her awkwardly at first, kind of like a guy who'd never held a child before. 30 seconds passed. Then something in me softened. I cradled her gently in my arm, the same way I used to hold Amy and Jeff when they were little, and I sat down on the old couch. Kamila came back with 2 glasses of eggnog. She sat across from me, watching me with a soft smile. You always had a way with babies, she said quietly. Not every man's got that. I gave her a weak, polite smile. The baby was adorable, soft, sleepy, peaceful, with features that looked a lot like Kamila. But even in that quiet moment, something in my chest ached. I couldn't shake the heaviness of it all. Could a man truly forgive without forgetting? I doubted it. Even though my mom would say yes. Even though Amy already had. Kamila stood and started placing the gifts under the tree. She paused when she reached the first one with the baby's name on the tag. You didn't have to do that, she said, her voice cracking. Christmas is for everyone, I replied softly. I couldn't leave her out. I looked down at the baby still resting against me. In another life, she might have been mine. My eyes stung as that thought settled in. I didn't hate the child, how could I? But I still hated what brought her into this world. It wasn't a coincidence that Kamila asked me to hold her tonight. I knew that. She stopped again at the gift labeled with her own name and wiped a tear from her cheek. Really, Louis, you shouldn't have. I wasn't expecting anything. And I didn't get you anything. I'm sorry. It's all right, I told her. I just wanted you and the kids to have a nice Christmas. You know, she said carefully, you could stay. You'd be more than welcome. There's plenty of food. I know the kids would be happy to see you here. Not this year, Kamila, I said gently. Maybe another time. It's just too fresh. She nodded and looked away. I wasn't trying to be cold. I was just being honest. That night, Christmas Eve, I wandered into Barnes & Noble just before they closed. I picked up the latest Clive Cussler novel and grabbed a peppermint mocha latte from the Starbucks inside. A couple other folks were doing the same, alone, quietly reading. I stayed until they flicked the lights and hinted it was time to go. Back at home, I had my own little holiday feast, some grocery store chicken salad, toast, a bag of Ruffles, and a few generous shots of Don Julio. It wasn't fancy, but it did the job. Christmas morning, I woke up a little hungover. For aspirin, 2 Pop-Tarts, and 3 cups of strong coffee later, I was back on my feet. I didn't have any big plans, so I headed over to my parents' place. Mom had made her baked ham, and the kids had left presents for me there when they found out I'd be stopping by. After dinner, we sat around drinking hot chocolate laced with peppermint schnapps. It brought back memories of old Christmases, better ones. At one point, Mom looked at me and said, "We hope you're all right with this, Louis, but your dad and I got gifts for Louis Jr. She's our granddaughter. Maybe not by blood, but she's family." I stayed quiet. "Alan's gone," she continued. "That little girl won't know her real father. She'll grow up needing love and guidance. You could be that person. We don't agree with what Kamila did, not completely, but we still love her. And you too." She looked right at me, her eyes starting to mist. "We think you still love her. You just don't know how to show it anymore. You're afraid people will think less of you if you go back, if you help raise her baby. But no one would judge you, Louis. Least of all us." Dad just stared at me, silent, but I could feel the pressure in the room. I knew what they wanted, but I also knew I couldn't do it. Not in good conscience. She didn't just cheat. She kept it secret. She let me believe that child was mine. She planned to lie about it forever, to pass off another man's baby as mine, all while pretending it was done in the name of compassion. That wasn't love. That was manipulation. A year passed. Not much changed. Same job, same quiet house. I wasn't dating. Didn't have many friends left. Truthfully, I never had many to begin with. Most were Kamila's friends or our friends, but after the divorce, they disappeared. At first, I assumed it was because of awkwardness. But one night, I found out the truth. I was sitting alone at a local bar when Dean and Emily Moore walked in. We'd all been close once, part of the same friend group. But when I greeted them, their response was ice cold. Emily gave me a look like I was dirt under her shoe, and Dean barely nodded. That set me off. "What did I do to you too?" I asked, standing near their table. Dean looked away, but Emily leaned forward, her voice sharp. "You didn't do it to us, Louis. You did it to her. You left the sweetest woman we know just because she had a child. That's low." I stared at her, stunned. "Wait, is that what you think happened?" I asked, my voice rising. "Because if that's the version you heard, you're missing about 90% of the story." They motioned for me to sit down. I didn't, I was too pissed. Instead, I leaned in close, my voice low but steady. "You two are gonna hear what really happened." "Let me guess," I said, leaning in toward Dean and Emily. "Nobody told you the baby isn't even mine, did they?" Their faces told me everything I needed to know. She got pregnant by her ex, yeah, Alan, who died of cancer shortly after. And she tried to make me believe the baby was mine. 24 years of marriage, and that's what I got in return. Loyalty? Nah. I didn't leave her, she left me the second she crawled back into bed with him. So spare me the moral lecture. I didn't wait for a response. I turned and walked right out of that bar, leaving them sitting there in shock. My second Christmas as a divorced man wasn't looking much different from the first. That night, I found myself once again at the Barnes and Noble down the street, my unofficial holiday refuge. The Christmas Eve Losers Club, as I like to call it, had 4 members this time, me, another guy flipping through a thriller, and 2 women tucked away in the cafe. I glanced over. One was a redhead, freckles, soft smile. She looked kind. The other caught my eye. She was stunning, long black hair, flawless skin, soft curves showing through a casual sweatshirt and jeans. Maybe in her early 50s, like me, give or take a couple of years. I figured, why not? What's the worst that could happen? She says no. I grabbed my book and my latte and walked over. "I didn't see you here last Christmas," I said with a grin. "You must be new to the Christmas Eve Losers Club." "I'm Louis, club president, by default." "So what brings such a beautiful woman out tonight?" She laughed genuinely, and I swear it was the nicest sound I'd heard all year. "Well," I continued, encouraged, "I do have a spare hungry man dinner at home if you're into microwavable gourmet. Not exactly fine dining, but I make a mean toast. You know, if you're not doing anything." She bit her lip, trying not to laugh again. "I don't usually say yes to stuff like this," she admitted, "but a hungry man and a club president? I'm in." Her name was Rachel Riley. "Louis Chester," I said, offering my hand. "President and part-time dinner host." I gave her my address and told her to come by around 6. Then I hustled home to throw the frozen dinners in the oven and try to make the place look halfway decent. Right at 6 o'clock, she knocked on the door. I greeted her with a smile, still half wondering if we were both completely crazy. We sat at my little kitchen table eating those microwave meals and drinking a bottle of Burgundy I'd been saving for a special occasion, though I never thought this would be it. We talked. And kept talking. I told her what brought me to Barnes and Noble on Christmas Eve. She opened up too. Her story made mine feel like small potatoes. Rachel was 5 years older than me, 52. Petite, 5'1", 100 pounds soaking wet. She'd been married for 16 years, but the last 6 were hell. Her husband, who wasn't much bigger than her, turned violent. She tried to blame herself for the bruises, for the broken jaw that finally landed her in the hospital. A counselor helped her see it wasn't her fault. She divorced him after waking up that night, and he ended up serving time for what he did. 2 years in prison, and then he vanished. No kids. Just scars. I haven't dated much since, she said, wiping her eyes. I have no family nearby. Christmas is always hard. She looked away, embarrassed. I know this was kind of nuts, coming here tonight, she added. But I didn't want to be alone. And honestly, who could say no to a hungry man? I chuckled. I'd gone to that store feeling sorry for myself, but after talking to Rachel, I realized I wasn't the only one out there carrying pain. After dinner, we curled up on the couch and watched a string of old Christmas movies. Rachel fell asleep next to me. She looked peaceful. I grabbed a big quilt, laid half over her, and crawled under the other side. I didn't plan to fall asleep, but somewhere between the ending and the credits, I did. When I woke up, we weren't sitting side by side anymore. She was lying across me, her head on my chest, one arm curled around me, and my hand? Somehow it ended up in her back pocket. The TV was still glowing softly. I didn't move. It just felt right. She stirred, opened her eyes, blinked at her position, and looked surprised. I lifted my head and kissed the tip of her nose. She wrinkled it and smiled, that bright, genuine smile again. Morning, she said quietly, a little unsure. Merry Christmas, I replied, tightening my arm around her. We laid there like that, both smiling like idiots, for a few more minutes. Then she blushed. I've never done anything like this before, she said. I swear. Is it just me, or are you feeling this too? I smiled. Oh, I'm feeling it. She leaned in, and our lips met in a kiss that was everything I didn't know I needed. Soft, passionate, real? The clothes started coming off not long after that. And let me just say, she was even more incredible than I imagined. And when I looked up at her afterward, I saw her staring down at me, eyes shining with something deep and vulnerable. And I could tell. She felt it too. You know, I said, rubbing the back of my neck like a nervous teenager, this might sound crazy, but any chance you're free today? I've got everything prepped for a proper Christmas dinner, and honestly, it'd be a whole lot nicer with someone like you sitting across the table. Rachel's smile widened. It wasn't just polite, it warmed me from the inside out. I probably should shower, she said, laughing lightly. And I didn't exactly bring a change of clothes. I grinned. The shower's plenty big for 2. And I've got an old Ohio State shirt that might work. Maybe some sweats too. She raised an eyebrow, eyes sparkling. If you're okay seeing me without makeup, then I'm in. We made our way to the kitchen, and I poured us both a glass of Riesling while I got started on dinner. So, she asked as she sipped her wine, no plans with family or anything? I shook my head. I was invited, believe it or not. Big family gathering at the old house. My ex is hosting, she's got everyone coming. The kids, my folks, her folks, even Alan's parents. The whole circus. Rachel leaned on the counter, curious. I told them I had other plans, I went on. They probably figured I was lying. Hell, maybe I was. I said I'd try to stop by, but we all know what that means. Truth is, I just couldn't do it. I didn't cheat. I didn't lie. I shouldn't be the one groveling. Rachel nodded slowly, listening without judgment. I get it, she said. Anyway, I said, setting the oven timer instead of diving into that mess. I'd rather focus on this. On us. She smiled at me, and I walked over, pulled her close, and kissed her. Right then, I heard the front door open. A voice called out, Dad. We froze in place, lips still touching, just as Logan walked into view. Oh, wow, he said, immediately looking away. Rachel's legs were showing beneath my oversized sweater, and I could feel the color drain from both our faces. Logan, bless him, turned around and stared at the wall like it might save his soul. Mom figured you'd be holed up here feeling sorry for yourself, he said quickly. She told me to come drag you to Christmas dinner. Looks like you weren't lying about being busy. He gave a sheepish smile. And honestly, this is way better than what she pictured. Son, you're not interrupting anything but dinner prep, I said, trying to sound casual, though Rachel and I were both blushing like teenagers caught behind the gym. Logan, I added, turn around so I can introduce you properly. He turned cautiously and stepped into the kitchen. It was obvious Rachel didn't have much on under that sweater, but she smiled and handled it with grace. Logan, this is Rachel. My Rachel. Nice to meet you, Rachel, he said with a grin. Thanks for keeping my old man company. It's my pleasure, she replied sweetly. Your dad's something special. Yeah, Logan muttered, half smiling. Some folks seem to forget that for a while. Wanting to change the subject, I asked, did everyone like the gifts I dropped off? How about Louis G? Everyone loved them, he said. Even the baby lit up like the tree. You still got it, Dad. You should have seen all the loot she got from the grandparents. Spoiled already. Glad to hear it, I said, nodding. Logan checked the time and mentioned he had to head back to help with dinner. We hugged, and as he walked toward the door, I called out, New Year's. He turned back, chuckling. Only if she's wearing pants next time. Promise. I laughed. She might even wear socks. Once he was gone, Rachel gave me a playful glare. Well, that wasn't too awkward, right? She asked, half smiling. And what was that about New Year's? I grinned. Oh, I didn't mean to speak for you. She raised an eyebrow. But where else would my future wife be on New Year's? I teased. Rachel laughed. You're confident, huh? Confident enough to take you ring shopping tomorrow morning, I said. Zarina's opens at 10. Her jaw dropped slightly, but her eyes softened, and that smile, the one that changed everything, returned. Merry Christmas, Louis, she whispered. Best one I've had in a long, long time, I said, pulling her close again. I'll be even more confident when you're picking out your ring tomorrow morning at Zarina's, I told her, still grinning like a fool. Rachel laughed, pulling the sweater tighter around herself. Can I at least go home and put some clothes on first? If you must, I said, pretending to be disappointed. But I'm docking points for ruining the cozy vibe. The next morning, true to her word, Rachel met me at the jewelry store. She picked out a gorgeous marquise-cut diamond. 1 carat, elegant as hell, just like her. Afterward, we grabbed lunch at a little cafe, and I decided it was time to share the news with my son, and then with my parents. Logan was thrilled. He gave me one of those genuine, no-holds-barred hugs and told me I deserved some happiness. My folks, though, not quite as enthusiastic. I don't mean to rain on your parade, sweetheart, my mom said gently. But isn't this all a bit fast? Are you sure you're not doing this to get back at Kamila? You know she still cares about you, right? I looked her in the eye. Mom, this isn't revenge. Kamila made her choices. I didn't cheat, she did. She made her priorities clear. And I'm finally making mine. I didn't tell Amy right away. Even though things between us had improved since the divorce, she still saw her mom's affair through rose-colored glasses. Some twisted story about love and sacrifice. I figured when she found out, she'd try to talk me out of marrying Rachel, and honestly, I didn't feel like fighting about it. I had spent more than 24 years with Kamila, but this thing with Rachel, it just clicked. I couldn't explain it, and neither could she. Our conversations felt effortless, like we'd known each other forever. We tried to break it down at first, questioning the timing, the emotions, the chemistry, but eventually we gave up trying to make sense of it and just let it be. And letting it be felt right. Within a month, Rachel moved in. For the next 6 months, we were practically inseparable. My folks, even with their lingering loyalty to Kamila, warmed up to Rachel quickly. She wasn't trying to replace anyone. She just brought kindness, class, and calm wherever she went. Amy, on the other hand, wasn't so quick to accept her. I think part of her still held onto the hope that I'd get back together with her mom, and Rachel symbolized the end of that dream. 6 months later, Rachel and I tied the knot in a small ceremony. Just a handful of people, those who mattered most. I invited both kids and my parents. Rachel brought her cousin and one close friend with their families. We rented out a private dining room at a cozy restaurant and kept it simple, warm, and joyful. It was perfect, except for the moment Amy pulled me aside, visibly irritated. Why didn't you invite Mom? Or Louis G? Or Grandma and Grandpa Wilson? She asked. I kept my voice calm. Because your mom's my ex-wife and it wouldn't be fair to Rachel. We're not close. And ex-in-laws don't usually get invites to weddings. Not unless the couple is on amazing terms. Which we're not. Amy didn't like that answer, but she didn't argue further. Rachel and Kamila didn't meet until 2 years later, at Amy's wedding. Kamila had planned everything down to the napkin folds, and I footed the bill without blinking. I was proud to walk Amy down the aisle, even if it meant being in close quarters with my ex again. As I looked over at Kamila during the ceremony, memories came flooding back. Those early days with her and Amy, coloring books, cookie dough, and bedtime stories. I won't lie, not all our years together were bad. Rachel saw it in my face. She reached over and gently squeezed my hand. Her kiss on my temple told me it was okay to feel it all, the past, the present, the weight, and the warmth. Rachel stayed gracious throughout the entire event. She didn't compete with Kamila or try to insert herself. She gave Kamila space to be mother of the bride. And Kamila didn't hide her displeasure. I later learned she and her parents still believed Rachel was just a placeholder, that our marriage was a rebound destined to fizzle out. Well, it didn't. Rachel and I recently celebrated 24 years of marriage. A quiet dinner, soft music, some wine, and just the two of us curled up together, falling asleep in each other's arms. It wasn't wild, it wasn't flashy, but it was full of love.